Welcome back, everyone. Example 8 is the same thing we've been doing. We just have A's and B's to deal with. So if you feel pretty good about what we've been doing, I encourage you to try example 8 on your own. Just be careful though, we do have more than one variable, but nothing else is really going to change. So if you want to try example 8 on your own, I say go for it. Otherwise, let's get started. Okay, so again, I start with my first term and I distribute that thing to every single term in my second parenthesis. So I'm going to start, again, I like to put in my exponents just so I know that something's there. So I know that when I don't see an exponent, secretly there's a 1 in my exponent. So all of these terms are going to have 1s in the exponents because none of my variables have exponents. Okay? So let's get started. So A times 2A, and again, if you don't see a number in front of a variable, there's also secretly a 1. So there's a 1 in front of my A. There's also secretly a negative 1 in front of this B. So just be careful. Okay, so 1 times 2 gives me 2. A times A, well, 1 plus 1 gives me 2. So this would be A squared. Okay. Then I'm going to multiply A to negative B. So 1 times negative 1 gives me a negative 1. So you guys can either write negative 1 or just leave it as a negative. It's kind of up to you. Okay? And then A times B, well, those are not like terms. I can't really multiply them together. Okay, so when you have different variables, if they're not the same, you just bring them on down. You can't combine them, so I'm going to bring on down my A and my B. So this would be a negative AB. Also, you could put like a negative 1AB. It's kind of up to you. Okay, so when you have variables that are not alike, you just simply write them side by side, and then you're done. Okay, now let's do the same thing with my second term. So I'm going to multiply 3B to 2A. Okay, 3 times 2 gives me a positive 6. And B times A, well, again, they are not alike. Okay, they are not like terms, so I cannot combine them. So I can write this as either 6BA. The order that you multiply doesn't matter, so I could also write it as 6AB. Now, since this term is AB, just to keep it consistent, I'm also going to write this AB. It is not wrong, though, to write it as BA. Okay, negative 1AB and 6BA are still like terms. Okay, the order of the variables doesn't make it a different term necessarily. Okay, so 6AB is the same thing as 6BA. It's just kind of whatever you prefer. I like to keep things consistent, so since I saw I had an AB, I'm going to also write this as AB. But it's really up to you. Okay? And then 3B times negative 1B, well, 3 times negative 1 gives me a negative 3. And B times B, well, 1 plus 1 gives me 2. So negative 3B squared. Okay, and then after this, you just combine your like terms, which when you have more than one variable to deal with, the order that you write things in isn't as important. Standard form really only applies when you have just one variable. Okay, so since I have A's and B's, it really doesn't matter how I write this. If you wanted to, you could still like write your two highest exponents first. But really, standard form is mostly important when you just have one variable. So I'm just going to go left to right and see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to start with my 2A squared, which I don't have any more A squared terms. None of my terms have an A squared in them. I know these have A's in them, but they are not like terms because in order to be a like term, not only do you have to have the same variables, you have to have the same exponent. So A squared is all by itself, so I'm going to bring it on down. Okay, my next term I spot, if I go from left to right, would be this AB term. So I'm looking for other terms that also contain an A and a B, and they have to be to the first power. Which right here, look at that. I have another term that has an A and a B in it. So these are like terms. So I'm going to combine the coefficients, the numbers in front of the variables. So negative 1 plus 6 is a positive 5. And then remember, you don't touch the exponent, so it'd be 5AB. Okay, and then my last term is a 3B squared, which I don't have any other terms that have a B squared in them. So this is also a lonely like term. Okay, it doesn't have anything to combine to, so guess what? I'm going to bring it on down. Okay, so my final answer would be this lovely 2a squared plus 5ab minus 3b squared. And that's it, you guys.